On a freezing night, John Cena came across a mother and her infant trying to stay warm inside an old car. The baby was bundled in mismatched blankets, while the mother's tired and weary eyes revealed her silent struggle. The quiet parking lot echoed with the child's soft cries, making the moment even heavier. What John Cena chose to do next would not only change their lives forever, but also leave you speechless. Before we dive deeper into this moving story, share with us where you're watching from. And if heart-touching stories like this inspire you, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow another emotional story will be waiting for you. It had been a long, fulfilling day for John Cena. Filming for his latest project wrapped earlier than expected, and instead of retreating into the solitude of his home, he decided to enjoy one of his simple routines. He cherished such quiet breaks from the chaos of fame, where he could blend into ordinary life. That night, it was just a quick supermarket trip. Carrying grocery bags in both hands, he stepped into the crisp night air, a breeze tugging lightly at his jacket hood. The world felt calm, yet full of whispers. He took a deep breath, adjusted his jacket, and began walking toward his car parked at the far edge of the lot. As always, his eyes scanned the surroundings, a habit formed over the years. The dim parking lot lights revealed a few idling cars, their drivers lost in their own thoughts. Everything seemed ordinary, until his attention caught something unusual. In the far corner, half hidden by shadows, stood an old, worn vehicle. Its foggy windows and pieces of clothing hanging from the rearview mirror swayed faintly in the breeze. John Cena frowned. Something about it felt out of place, almost sad. He slowed his steps, watching carefully. Then he saw her, Emily. She pushed a shopping cart to the side, her clothing thin and her pale, drawn face showing exhaustion. John Cena felt in his gut that her situation was far more difficult than it appeared. She kept glancing over her shoulder nervously, suspicion in her eyes, as she rushed back to the old car. Her cautious, deliberate movements struck him. Could that car be her home? The thought hit him hard, tightening his chest. He didn't wish to intrude, yet the urge to help was too strong. Without hesitation, he approached slowly, keeping his manner calm and unthreatening. He didn't want to scare her, only to reach out. "Hello," he said softly, his voice gentle, almost a whisper. Emily froze, turning sharply. Their eyes met for a brief moment before she quickly looked away, avoiding him. She clearly didn't want to be noticed. "Are you all right?" John Cena asked kindly, his voice calm and warm. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Her response came quickly, sharper than expected. "No, I'm fine. Thank you," she replied firmly. Beneath the cold tone lingered fear, or perhaps just the weariness of struggling alone for too long. John Cena nodded understanding. He didn't press her but quietly said, "If you need anything, I'll be nearby." Simple words but heartfelt. He wasn't about to walk away. As Emily turned back toward her car, he noticed the faint outline of a baby shifting in her arms through the misty window. John Cena's heart clenched. At that moment, he knew he couldn't just leave them. The next morning, John Cena couldn't shake the memory of Emily and her baby. The image had stayed with him all night, clinging to his thoughts like a shadow. Seeing her so tired, anxious, and carrying a burden he couldn't fully understand made him realize he couldn't simply walk away. He had never been someone to ignore another's struggles, but this time something about it felt different, more urgent. It wasn't just about charity. It was about truly helping. Sitting in his car with the engine running, he gazed through the windshield at the same corner of the parking lot he'd seen the night before. The old vehicle was still there, its windows misted again with the morning chill. Bits of clothing swayed from the mirror, fluttering slightly in the breeze. His heart sank as it hit him. The mother and her child hadn't left. They were still enduring the cold. That morning, John Cena had prepared a few small things. Simple items he hoped would offer comfort. From his closet, he brought out a fresh blanket and grabbed a bottle of mineral water. They weren't extravagant gifts, just thoughtful gestures meant to ease her hardship without making her feel indebted. Parking in the same spot as before, John Cena stepped out quietly, moving with calm intention. He didn't want to alarm her. Instead of knocking on her window, he gently placed the blanket and water bottle on the hood of her car where she could easily see them. Then he stepped back, giving her space. His actions spoke of respect. He didn't want her to feel cornered, only acknowledged. Standing a few paces away, John Cena waited patiently. Minutes passed before the silence broke with the sound of a car door opening. Emily stepped out cautiously, her tired eyes scanning the lot before settling on the items resting on the hood. Her face tensed with suspicion. Slowly, she walked toward them, her movements hesitant. John Cena remained still, his hands tucked in his jacket pockets, saying nothing. Though his heart beat faster, he kept his posture calm, aware that she might feel conflicted or mistrustful. At last, Emily reached for the items. She touched the blanket gently, then pulled it close to her chest. Her lips stayed silent, but her eyes revealed something more, a flicker of gratitude, faint but undeniable. She didn't say a word. Instead, she turned and slipped back into the car, closing the door quietly behind her. John Cena watched, a heavy feeling settling in. What he had done was small, not nearly enough, but it was a beginning. He hoped it could be the first step toward something greater, for both her and himself. Climbing back into his own car, he started the engine and glanced one last time toward the corner. The silhouette of the baby was still faintly visible through the fogged window. He knew he couldn't leave it at this. He wouldn't. John Cena couldn't get Emily out of his mind. The picture of her, shivering in the cold with her baby in her arms, replayed over and over. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the way she leaned against that old car, as though it was the only thing keeping her upright. He couldn't dismiss it. There was something about her quiet endurance, the way she tried to remain unseen while carrying such a heavy burden, that called to him. So, the following morning, John Cena drove back to the supermarket lot. His chest carried the weight of the day before. Though he had offered a small kindness, it hadn't felt like enough. He wanted to do more, something that went beyond a temporary fix. He parked in the same place and scanned the area. The old car was still there, its windows once again fogged from the chill. His eyes fell immediately on Emily, who was pushing carts to the side of the lot. Her worn clothes and slouched posture revealed the toll of too many sleepless nights. But this time, he noticed a subtle shift, maybe extra hesitation in her steps, or an even deeper weariness than yesterday. Taking a slow breath, John Cena knew he had to approach carefully. He couldn't risk breaking the fragile connection. Trust had to be built slowly. He waited until she came close to the car, then walked toward her deliberately but gently. "Hi, Emily," he said softly, his voice calm and respectful. She froze, turning her head. Her eyes carried caution, but not hostility, just unease. "I'm the one who left the blanket and water yesterday," he added, his tone light. "I hope that didn't bother you." Emily hesitated as if weighing his words. Her expression softened slightly, though the guarded look didn't vanish. "Why?" she asked quietly, her voice edged with suspicion. John Cena gave a small shrug, trying not to appear threatening. "I saw you here and thought you might need them. That's all." Her eyes showed a flicker of something, a small crack in the wall she had built around herself. She wasn't opening up, but she wasn't shutting him out either. "I understand if you don't want to talk," he continued gently. "I just want to help. If you don't need it, that's okay too." For a long moment, silence stretched. Then, to his surprise, she spoke again, her voice softer this time. "Thank you for the blanket and the water." John Cena nodded, keeping a respectful distance. "You're welcome," he said. "If you need anything else, I'll be around." Emily turned and headed back to her car. A small wave of hope washed over him. She hadn't rejected him completely. It was progress, however small. He stood there for a while, watching her settle back inside with the baby. The faint sound of crying drifted through the quiet lot, and John Cena realized this was just the beginning. There was more to do, more he wanted to give. But for now, he could only wait. For a long moment, silence stretched. Then, to his surprise, she spoke again, her voice softer this time. "Thank you for the blanket and the water." The following days unfolded like a careful balancing act. John Cena returned to the parking lot each morning, carrying with him a quiet hope that he could somehow ease Emily's struggle, yet never pushing her beyond what she was ready for. He had come to understand that helping wasn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it was simply about showing up, being present, and proving that someone cared. For now, that had to be enough. On the third morning, John Cena parked in his usual spot, his eyes instinctively scanning for Emily. He knew she would be there. He could almost sense it. Sure enough, in the distance, he saw her. She was pushing a cart back toward the car, her shoulders heavy with the weight of exhaustion. Yet, something about her seemed different. She wasn't as quick to avert her eyes, not quite as closed off as before. John Cena drew in a deep breath, steadying himself. He had spent hours imagining how best to approach her again. He didn't want to overwhelm her with kindness that felt intrusive. What she needed was proof, evidence that he wasn't just another stranger passing by with fleeting concern. As she reached her car, John Cena took his chance. He walked slowly, careful with every step, but made sure she noticed him. "Hey, Emily," he greeted softly, his tone both calm and reassuring. She looked up, her eyes still weary, but now there was something gentler in them, a faint spark of curiosity. "Hi," she replied hesitantly. John Cena offered a small smile. "I just wanted to check in. I know I gave you the water and blanket, but if there's anything else you need, I'm here." Emily glanced down at her hands, her silence stretching as if she were weighing his sincerity. Finally, her lips parted and she whispered, "I'm managing for now." John Cena nodded with quiet understanding. "I'm glad to hear that," he said softly. "But please remember, you don't have to carry this alone. If ever you need more, I'll be here." Her eyes flickered with vulnerability, the honesty of her next words striking him. "I don't know how to ask for help," she admitted, her voice breaking just slightly. John Cena stepped forward, not too close, but enough to show he was present. "You don't have to ask," he assured gently. "I'm offering." For the first time, Emily lifted her gaze to meet his directly. Gratitude, fragile yet real, shimmered there. It wasn't a breakthrough, but it was progress, and John Cena felt it deeply. The days that followed seemed to open up with possibility. Each small exchange with Emily brought them one step closer. John Cena had discovered the power of patience. Trust, he realized, could not be rushed, especially from someone who had endured so much hardship. It was delicate, fragile, but it was real. John Cena continued to keep a respectful distance, offering small acts of kindness whenever he could. Sometimes a simple meal, other times just a few minutes of conversation. He never pushed too far, always careful to respect Emily's need for space. Still, his presence was constant, a steady reminder that she wasn't entirely alone. On the fourth morning, he arrived as usual, pulling into the same spot and scanning the lot. His eyes quickly found Emily, sitting quietly in her car with Oliver in her arms. She looked even more worn than before, her face lined with an exhaustion that cut deeper than mere lack of sleep. Without saying a word, John Cena reached for the bag he had prepared earlier that day. Inside was a simple sandwich, a thermos of tea, and a few snacks. Small gestures, but chosen with thought. He knew these wouldn't solve everything, yet even small comforts could make a difficult day a little lighter. He walked toward her slowly, ensuring she saw him approaching. Emily lifted her gaze from the window. Her eyes, though wary, didn't carry the sharp defensiveness they once had. "Hey, Emily," John Cena said softly, his tone calm and gentle. She gave a small nod of acknowledgement but didn't speak. John Cena didn't push. Instead, he quietly placed the bag on the hood of her car, just as he had before, then stepped back to give her room. "I thought you might be hungry," he explained. "No pressure, it's just something to help." For a long moment, Emily didn't move. Her eyes shifted from the bag to him, then back again. John Cena stood patiently, his hands in his pockets, showing he wasn't in a rush. Finally, she reached forward, her fingers brushing the bag before she drew it close. Her expression softened, and her voice came out low but sincere. "Thank you." A small smile formed on John Cena's face. "You're welcome. If you need more, I'll be around." As he walked back toward his own car, a faint sense of relief settled over him. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was progress. Every small step seemed to build toward something greater, a way forward, perhaps even a chance at a new beginning. The days continued slowly, each one heavy with uncertainty. Yet John Cena kept showing up, offering what he could, never pushing beyond what Emily was ready to accept. He knew the real change would come when she felt ready to trust. Until then, patience was his greatest offering. But even in those quiet moments, he could see it, her guard lowering bit by bit as gratitude flickered in her tired eyes. A few evenings later, John Cena returned to the same parking lot. He had started to notice a subtle change in Emily, a slight softening in the way she carried herself, though the weight of her struggle was still visible. This time, she wasn't inside the car. Instead, she sat on the curb, gently holding Oliver in her arms while staring into the distance. Her face showed even deeper exhaustion than before, but there was also something else, a quiet resignation, as though she had accepted this harsh life as her fate. John Cena paused, unsure if it was the right moment to approach. Yet something about the way she sat, her shoulders hunched, her expression distant, told him she was ready. She wasn't just enduring anymore. She looked like someone who wanted to be heard. He walked slowly, his steps deliberate so as not to startle her. When she looked up, there was recognition in her tired eyes. "Hi," he said softly, lowering himself to sit a short distance away, careful not to invade her space. "Hi," she replied faintly, her voice rough from weariness. Her gaze fell back to Oliver, who slept peacefully against her chest. John Cena waited for a moment, allowing silence to settle comfortably between them. Then he spoke, his tone calm and sincere. "You don't need to share anything you're not ready for. But if you want to talk, I'm here." For a while, Emily didn't respond. She simply looked down, her fingers stroking Oliver's soft hair. The silence stretched, but John Cena didn't rush her. Finally, after what felt like minutes, her voice broke the stillness. Low, trembling. "It all started when he died, my husband." Her throat tightened as she forced the words out, eyes glistening with unshed tears. John Cena didn't interrupt. He stayed quiet, his presence steady and gentle, giving her space to continue. He understood this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about finding a safe place to grieve, to release the pain she had carried alone for too long. Emily swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought things would be okay. But after Liam passed away, everything just collapsed." Her words carried the weight of heartbreak, and though she stopped speaking, the silence between them told the rest of the story. John Cena's heart ached for her, but he didn't push. He knew this was only the beginning of her opening up, the first crack in the wall she had built around her pain. Over time, John Cena began to notice a small but meaningful shift in Emily. One morning, she carried herself a little differently. Her posture straighter, her steps slightly lighter, as if some invisible weight had been lifted, even if only a little. From his car, parked across the lot, John Cena could see the difference. The old battered vehicle was still there, but it didn't seem quite as hopeless as before. Something had changed, even if subtly. It had been a week since their first honest conversation. Emily hadn't shared many more details about her past, but her interactions with John Cena were warmer now, less guarded. It felt as if the walls she had built around her heart were beginning to crack, letting in the possibility of trust. In the meantime, John Cena had been quietly working behind the scenes. He reached out to a few trusted contacts, people who could offer genuine support and resources. Small gestures and kind words could only go so far. Emily needed something more permanent. He was determined to provide her with stability, not just momentary relief. That morning, John Cena stepped out of his car with purpose. He had managed to arrange temporary housing for Emily and Oliver, a modest clean room at a local community center. It wasn't lavish, but it was safe, warm, and stable. It was the start of something new. As he walked toward her, he noticed Emily sitting outside the car again, Oliver asleep in her arms. She wasn't staring blankly into the distance anymore. Instead, her eyes were fixed on her son with a softer expression, almost peaceful. When she spotted John Cena, she straightened a little, her face cautious but not closed off. He smiled gently. "Hey, Emily," he greeted in a calm voice. "Hi," she replied, her lips tightening nervously. "I've been able to arrange something for you and Oliver," he began, his voice firm but kind. "There's a safe place where you can stay for a while. A clean room. No conditions, no strings attached. Just somewhere for you and Oliver to rest until we figure out the next steps." Emily blinked in surprise, her face showing disbelief. For a moment, she couldn't find her voice. John Cena could sense the hesitation in her silence. Finally, she looked up, her eyes shining with both relief and uncertainty. Are you sure?" she whispered, her voice trembling. John Cena nodded firmly. "I wouldn't offer if I wasn't sure." After a long pause, Emily's lips parted, her voice breaking with emotion. "Thank you." A smile spread across John Cena's face, lighter than it had been in days. "You're welcome. Let's get you there. You don't have to face this alone anymore." Emily's first nights at the community center felt almost unreal, like a luxury she hadn't imagined for herself in a long time. The room was small but spotless, with a comfortable bed dressed in fresh sheets, a tiny crib for Oliver, and even a bathroom with hot water. It wasn't anything grand, but for Emily, it was more than enough. For the first time in weeks, she didn't have to wonder if she and her son would have a roof over their heads. The simple security of shelter gave her something she hadn't felt in months: peace of mind. For Oliver, it meant sleeping in a real crib instead of the cramped backseat of a car. For Emily, it meant closing her eyes without the constant worry of survival. The exhaustion that had weighed her down began to ease just slightly, replaced by something she thought she had lost: hope. The very next day, John Cena visited, keeping his promise. He didn't barge in with overwhelming promises or too many questions. Instead, he simply wanted to see how she was adjusting, to make sure her basic needs were being met. As always, his approach was quiet and respectful. He listened far more than he spoke, careful not to disturb the fragile trust that was slowly taking shape between them. "I honestly didn't know what to expect," Emily admitted, still in disbelief. "This is more than I ever imagined. Thank you for everything." John Cena smiled gently, his expression free of pride, only filled with understanding. "You don't need to thank me," he replied softly. "You've been carrying the hardest part all along. I'm just here to help make sure you get a real chance to rebuild." His words were simple, but they carried weight. Emily had been fighting for so long, believing she had to bear every burden alone. Now, for the first time, someone was showing her a different way, a way where she didn't have to carry it all herself. "Do you really think I can do this?" she asked quietly, her voice tinged with a fragile new hope. John Cena nodded with certainty. "I know you can. It'll take time, but you've already proven your strength. You just need the right support, and I'll be here to make sure you have it." For the first time in what felt like forever, Emily felt a spark of belief stir inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she could rebuild her life, not just for herself but for Oliver too. The first step had been taken. And for once, the road ahead didn't feel impossible. Emily had always believed that if she could just catch a small break, life might turn around. But she never expected that chance to arrive in the form it did. When John Cena first stepped into her life, she assumed his kindness would be brief, just another passing gesture from someone who couldn't possibly understand her struggles. But as days went by, she realized she had been wrong. John Cena wasn't offering her short-term comfort. He was giving her the chance to start again. During her week at the community center, Emily's life began to shift in ways she hadn't thought possible. She started piecing herself back together bit by bit. The path wasn't easy. Far from it. But it was progress. The cafe job that John Cena had helped her find soon opened more doors. She was later offered a part-time receptionist role at a small office, a steady position that brought purpose back into her days. Each small victory added to her confidence, reminding her that she still had strength within her. The loneliness she once felt, the crushing sense that no one cared, was slowly fading. John Cena kept checking in, but he always did so with respect, never crossing boundaries. He wasn't hovering over her. He was simply there, dependable when she needed him. He had grown to be more than just a helper. He had become a true friend, someone she could confide in without fear of judgment. In learning to accept his kindness, Emily also began to rediscover belief in herself. One quiet evening, as she sat at the small kitchen table in her community center room, her phone buzzed with a message from John Cena. "How are you doing?" Her fingers hovered above the keyboard as she tried to capture everything. The progress, the relief, the small victories. Finally, she typed, "I'm doing well. Better than I have in a long time. Thank you for never giving up on me." His reply came almost instantly. "I never did. The strength was always in you. You just needed a little help to see it." A smile spread across Emily's face as she read his words. There was no pressure, no expectation, just acknowledgement of how far she had come. That night, as she tucked Oliver into bed, she thought about their journey. A life she once thought was permanently lost now felt within reach. There were still uncertainties ahead, of course, but the future no longer seemed hopeless. It felt full of possibility. And all of it had begun with a single act of kindness that gave her the courage to heal. The cafe was unusually quiet that afternoon, a kind of peaceful silence Emily had come to cherish. The soft hum of conversation blended with the clinking of cups and saucers, creating a calm rhythm in the background. She sat at the counter, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, watching the steam swirl upward. It wasn't much, just a simple job, a simple shift, but for her it had become a symbol of strength regained. She was no longer just surviving. She was beginning to truly live again. As time passed, her thoughts, as they often did, drifted toward John Cena. She had never expected him to become such a steady presence in her life. At first, she thought of him as just another kind stranger, someone with resources, offering help without truly grasping her struggles. But she had been wrong. Over time, his consistency had shown her something far more valuable. John Cena had given her a glimpse of a future she thought she had lost. Weeks had passed since she moved into her own apartment, and months had gone by since John Cena first extended his hand to help. Now, sitting at the cafe counter, Emily felt something new stir within her, a desire to give back. She wanted to help someone else, the way she had once been helped. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from John Cena. "Hey, how are you today?" A smile spread across her face as she typed a quick reply. "Doing well. Things are finally moving forward. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about paying it forward." His response was simple, yet powerful. "You'll find a way. I believe in you." Gratitude filled her heart as she set the phone down. She didn't yet know how or when, but she was ready. She was no longer only a recipient of kindness. She was becoming someone who could pass it on. Looking around the cafe, Emily's gaze softened as she noticed the faces of the customers. She didn't know their stories, but she could imagine. Loneliness, silent struggles, the hidden battles of everyday life. She had been in their place not so long ago. And now she felt prepared to be the one who noticed, the one who helped. Quietly, a new chapter of her journey was beginning. Not just for herself and Oliver, but for others too. And so, the cycle of kindness continued. If stories like this touch your heart and fill you with hope, don't forget to like and share, so that love and compassion reach even more people. And if you'd like to hear more tales of resilience, kindness, and life's small miracles, subscribe so you never miss the next story.